There are a total of 53 weapons in Pixel Strike 3D, not counting the equipment, but only the primaries, secondaries, and melee weapons. Now, if you're a casual player, you probably are amazed at the massive amount of weapons you could choose from. And you're more likely to try out a weapon and see if you like it, and if you do, it'd probably be the weapon you'd use the most. However, if you are more on the competitive side, you're probably wondering which weapons will give you an edge against the competition. You know, which weapons are top tier or which weapons you should stay away from. Well, you're in luck because today I will be ranking all 53 weapons in Pixel Strike 3D. Now, I'm going to point out that this will be based off the 10.0.0 update which came out a couple weeks back, so any weapons added after this tier list is released will not be accounted for. Also, how this is going to work is that I will be ranking the melee weapons first, then I'll be moving on to the secondary weapons, and finally we will be ranking all of the primary weapons. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alrighty, so as you can see, as I fix these background colors, we've got 5 tiers here, which will be representing our top tiers, our high tiers, mid tiers, low tiers, and bottom tier garbage. So, as you can see, we have 10 melee weapons. How this is going to work is I'm going to be going from the bottom tier to the top tier, so I'm going to be putting weapons and explaining why they're in said tiers. So we're going to kick these off with the D tier, and the only weapon going in this tier will be the Battle Hammer, actually. Now, let me explain. You might be thinking because it does 130 damage that it's a strong weapon, and while 130 damage is a lot, it can one-shot people, this thing is destroyed by one very unfortunate thing. Its lack of speed. In fact, this thing is so slow, it's seconds per use. When your fire rate is in seconds per use and not uses per second or bullets per second, if it's seconds per bullet, oh my god, that is terrible. Unless you're like a sniper or something, then you're just going to the shove-it zone right off the bat. Especially in a game like this where everyone's got carrots up their ass, jumping around, running around like crazy and everything. You can catch people with this thing, but good freaking luck trying to. Now, moving on to the C tier, we have 2 weapons in the C tier, which will be the axe and the lightsaber. Now, these 2 weapons have pretty big weaknesses. Now, the lightsaber, honestly, it would have been put in the D class, but the lightsaber moves up to the C class because of one very unique property. I'm actually going to put it above the axe. Now, this thing sets people on fire. Now, fire damage in this game, once you get hit by something that sets you on fire, you're taking 30 damage no matter what happens. Like, 30 damage is pretty much guaranteed. And with the axe, it's a pretty meh weapon. I know it's the first thing you start with, but literally every other thing is better. It does have 7 meters of range. Like both these weapons have 7 meters of range, but there are weapons which either do more damage or are faster than this thing, so it sort of gets out. It's mainly this low just because everything else is better and not because it's a steaming mess, really. Now, moving on to the B tier, we have a couple weapons here, which will actually be the sword and the battle dagger. Now, you might be confused as to why the battle dagger is this low. Now, it does 98 damage, which is a lot, right? If you have hollow points, you can one-shot people, as long as they're not running Juggernaut. But that's before I mentioned that, this thing's glitched. Now, what I mean by glitch is that, usually when you use a weapon, like, say I use the, the sword. You swing at someone, there's a hitbox, you donk them. Simple, right? With this weapon, you swing at someone, nothing happens until a second later, and then that's when the hitbox comes out. Now, you can work around this, but if you don't know about this, you're going to be hella confused, and you're going to end up feeling stupid and everything. But yeah, because it's glitched, or because it's missing an animation, I'm not sure which one it is. Yeah, the battle dagger's not higher on the list, just because it's glitched up. If it wasn't glitched, it probably would have been an A or even an S tier weapon, but unfortunately, because of its glitched issue, yeah, I put it this low on the list. Now, moving on to our high tiers, our A tier weapons, we've got 3 selections, and those will be the tactical knife, the butterfly knife, and the cutlass. And you know what that means. These 2 are going to be in the S tier, and I'll explain later. But first, let's talk about the 3 stooges right here. Now, all these weapons are very, very good. Only one of them has 7 meters of range, that would be the cutlass. But they all do good damage. They're all very fast, especially the tack knife. The tack knife was actually the standard zombies weapon for infected. So a lot of people know about this weapon, and this thing is well-rounded, really. 2 shots to the head. And even then, 3 shots with its speed is not anything to scoff at. So it's very good for that. The Cutlass is basically a slower katana. So think of the katana, but a little slower. But in saying that, it does get the job done at 2 shots, people. But it is pretty damn slow. But it does have 7 meters of range, so that's one thing it's got going for it. And then we have the Butterfly Knife, which it would have been in the S tier, but it actually got nerfed. So it no longer one-shots to the head without hollow points. So yeah, that's unfortunate. But other than that, these weapons are actually pretty strong. I might actually put the Cutlass in the S tier, just because 55 damage is it's a lot with its fire rate. You can actually 2-shot people with it. So I might actually go ahead and put this in the S tier. But also in the S tier will be the Katana and the Headhunter. And this is because the Katana is very fast. It's faster than the Cutlass, actually. So it's very fast. It does good damage for its speed. It's got 7 meters of range, which is always nice. And for the Headhunter, it one-shots people to the head, which has always been a thing. I mean, there's a reason why it's called the Headhunter. It hunts for heads and it one-shots people, right? But yeah. So we got our big 3 melee weapons. I was going to leave the Cutlass in A class, but after looking at its damage again, yeah, 55 damage with its speed is pretty damn strong. So yeah, I put it in the S tier. Bottom of S tier, though. Bottom of S tier, just because it's slow. But yeah, as you can see, we've got all 10 of our melee weapons ranked. And real quick, I'm going to point out how this is basically all my opinion, and from me using all of these weapons. So if you have a different sort of tier in mind, feel free to make your own tier list. I'll leave a description to my tier list in the... No, not a description, I'll leave a link in the description to my tier list. Damn it, what is going on with me? Anyways, we're moving on. Alright, and we are now on to our secondary weapons. And there's 13 of these things, and again, we will be starting from the very bottom of the tier list, going all the way up to no man's land. And we're going to be starting things off with the C tier. There's no garbage tier weapons, no bad weapons, but in saying that, probably the worst weapon out of this pack would have to be the Blunderbuss. And the Blunderbuss, well, there's some things it has going for it. It one-shots people to the head, yes, but well, for one thing, its fire rate is pretty slow, all things considered. I mean, it balances out because it one-shots. But you only get 3 bullets, right? You only get 3 bullets. You don't have sniper range, I don't think. No, you have SMG range. You have 45 meters of it. So, and not to mention the iron sights are absolutely disgusting. They're flat as hell, man. They're like a cutting board. So you pretty much need to run a dot. Now, while it can one-shot in the head, if you miss, you die. So yeah. If you miss, you're pretty much asking for trouble. But other than that, Blunderbuss is pretty much the worst out of all these, but at the same time, it's not unusable. If it was unusable, it definitely would have been D tier, but yeah, it's going to spend its time in the C tier. On to the B tier now. There's going to be quite a few weapons in the B tier, including the shotgun, the pistol, and that's it, really. The shotgun's got flat iron sights, but I'm going to put it above the pistol just for the sole fact that it does actually hit very hard at close range, which, you know, any shotgun should, right? You can put a hell of a lot of ammo in it. And by the way, why does a double-barrel shotgun carry 6 bullets? Stock? Kind of doesn't make sense if you ask me. And then the pistol is just your standard run-of-the-mill starter pistol. Does do some good damage, but it's pretty slow and gets outgunned by a lot of the other weapons here, so that's sort of why it's B class. But, yeah. Moving on to our A class, we have quite a lot of weapons. Quite a lot of weapons. Let's go in order, though. We're going to start with the Deagle. The Deagle is a very, very strong weapon. It two-shots people. It's got a decent ammo pool. Thing is, it does kick a little bit, so the accuracy on this thing is something you're going to have to fight for. But if you can fight around this weapon's lack of accuracy sometimes and its recoil, this thing does absolute damage. Moving on to the auto pistol, we're going to put the auto pistol and also the G17. Now, both of these are automatic weapons, One of them has more range than the other, which would be the G17. The G17 does have less ammo from what I remember. The auto pistol is pretty much a pocket SMG, so I mean, both of these weapons are very good if you either are lacking range or need something for close range. So, very good weapons. Also in the A tier, and this one surprised me by the way, is actually going to be the Magnum. The Magnum is actually really strong. I didn't expect it to be so strong, actually. It 3-shots people without hollow points, but with hollow points on, you 2-shot people for free, basically. Well, not for free, because you have hollow points. You have to sacrifice a perk, but everyone runs hollow points, so what the hell is the problem, right? But yeah, unlike the Desert Eagle, yeah, it does need hollow points. The Desert Eagle doesn't need hollow points to shoot 2-shot things, but I was pleasantly surprised by the Magnum. So the Magnum fits really well in the A tier. Good fire rate, good bullet spread, surprisingly. Low recoil, way lower than the Desert Eagle, so you're looking at 20 less recoil. But again, the Deagle is just, if you could tame the Deagle, it's a very strong weapon. Now, still in the A tier, the Striker, the Tech. The SX2. Why am I thinking of the Tech? The Tech's right here. The Striker, the SX2, and the Tech 9. Damn it. Alright. Now, Tech 9, hit fire god. No questions about it. It does standard damage. 34.5 damage, which is actually very strong. I don't know why I said standard. It's got insane bullet spread because it's the bullet spread god. Low recoil, but it does suffer in the range department. If it had more range, it'd definitely be a top tier secondary weapon. And then, of course, we got the shotguns, the Striker and the SX2. Now, the Striker is your semi-auto weapon. Very good for hit and runs, very good for rushing down. And you also have the SX2, which with extended clip, you basically double its fire rate with extended clip on it. It's insane. That's basically the A class. And finally, we got the S class, our top tier weapons, which will be the trench gun, the G18, and Black Air Force's weapon number 1, which will be the Army pistol. Let's talk about the trench gun first. Alright. Now, the trench gun is actually one of the better shotguns. It does 120 damage, assuming every single bullet hits, which makes this absolutely dangerous at close range. Hell, even at mid-range, if you can get a headshot with this thing, you'll still one-shot regardless. It does lack range, though, only 30 meters of it. Its bullet spread is kind of all over the place, because, I mean, it's a shotgun. Why wouldn't it be all over the place, right? But other than that, it's a very good close quarters weapon. Definitely one you gotta watch out for. The G18 is essentially the G17, but way more ammunition. It does have slightly less range. Or, I don't know, it might have the same range. No, it has less range, so I was right. It has less range, does less damage, but it has an insane amount of ammo, which makes it pretty much another sort of pocket SMG. But unlike the auto pistol, I find it to be a lot easier to use just because it has more range. The auto pistol has 25 meters of range, and the G18 has 40. Otherwise, yeah, think of this as just a better auto pistol, really. And then, of course, we've got this damn thing, the Army pistol. I don't know. It's funny. Volcron tried nerfing this thing several times, and it's still busted. Eh? Let's go over why it's so busted. Let's see. It 4-shots people. It's got 80 meters of range, which is a lot for a pistol. 6.7 bullets per second, which is standard for a pistol, standard for a semi-auto pistol. Low-ass recoil, ungodly bullet spread, and also one of the fastest ADS-Bs in the whole game, if not the fastest, which is crazy if you know what I'm saying. But yeah, this right here is my tier list for our secondary weapons. Now, with all that out of the way, we've got only one more class to go through, and I think you all have been waiting for this one. Let's get it. Here we are, ladies and gents. 6 tiers, because there are 30 weapons, right? 30 weapons in this entire class. I mean, there's a pistol here, but that shouldn't really be here. I'm just gonna put this in the D class just to fill up space. This doesn't count, though. This doesn't count. Okay? Now, with all that said, we are going to kick things off with the C tier. In the C tier, we will be having the Barrett 50 cal, but not just the Barrett 50 cal, we'll also be having the water gun. Now, you could argue that the Barrett 50 cal could be in B class. I'm actually going to put this above the water gun, because you could argue that could be B class material. I wouldn't blame you for thinking that, because the Barrett 50 cal, if you put a grip on it, this thing is stable. Well, not stable, but it's way more manageable than if you were to use the gun naked. This thing kicks so hard, you'd think Shawn Michaels made this damn weapon. You'd think the Young Bucks helped manufacture it. You'd think the Usos friggin' blueprinted it. Like, why does it kick so hard? Oh my god, man. Like, this thing just refuses to stay still.
It refuses to be accurate. Like, you pretty much have to be constantly fighting the gun for it to actually work in your favor, but when you do get it to work, you can put up a good score with it, but literally everything else is better for that, right? And then the water gun is pretty much one of the weakest weapons in the entire game. It had more range in the past, but I think they recently nerfed the range. Now it only has 10 meters of range, or I could be wrong about the range, but yeah, it has less range than the Bison, which has only 15 meters of range. If you slap on lightweight with this thing and you lock down a close quarters area, like the room and warehouse, the crates and shipment, the houses in Nuketown, you can actually kill some people with this thing, but those are pretty specific situations, and most of those are probably going to be in Capture the Flag on Nuketown. But other than that, this thing is pretty bad. It's a pretty bad weapon, all things considered. In B class, we have the A180, the AK. Oh yeah, we got this damn thing. Not the RPD, the other one. Where is it? God, where's the M6? There it is. Man, couldn't find you, could I? Now, going over each of these, the Frozen Sniper used to have this gimmick, where if it did still have the gimmick, it probably would have been A or S class, but it doesn't have the gimmick. When you hit someone with this thing, you actually slowed them down for like 2 or 3 seconds, which really countered the whole bunny hopping thing, right? But they since then removed it, so yeah. Other than that, it is a pretty stable weapon. It's got a good ammo pool. I mean, the other 2 snipers do its job, but better. But other than that, the Frozen Sniper is actually not that bad. It's pretty good. It does good damage, has decent range. You can aim quick with it. Its fire rate's okay. So that's all there is to that. Moving on to the M60 now. The M60 is it's an okay light machine gun. It's got garbage bullet spray, which I mean, it's a light machine gun. The bullet spread is going to be garbage regardless if it was good or not. It's got 80 meters of range, which wouldn't be too bad if the RP didn't have literally 200 of it, so more than twice of what the M60 has. It's got a higher fire rate than the RPD though, so that's good. It does less damage than the RPD, but other than that, yeah, this weapon doesn't have much going for it that other weapons can't do already. Same goes for the AK. The thing kicks, but it does hit hard, and a lot of people, it's a popular pick for a lot of people, so the AK is not too bad, but I personally had a hard time using it just because the thing just would not keep still. And then we have the A180, which, one, iron sights right off the bat, the iron sights are garbage. Like, there's no 2 ways about it. The iron sights are absolutely trash. And, it's a burst SMG, which wouldn't be a problem if it wasn't both at the same time. Because it's a burst SMG, you suffer the weakness of a burst weapon and an SMG weapon all in the same time, but in saying that, you can one-burst people to the head. If you can actually take the time to learn this weapon, you can actually do really well with it. That's pretty much what I gotta say about the A180. Next up on the chopping block is all of the A-class weapons. Actually, I'm gonna put the Sheriff Pistols in the C class as well. I forgot to put the Sheriff Pistols in C class. The Sheriff Pistols, in the grand scheme of things, they're not that great. They do good damage. They have some of the best bullet spread in the game because you can't really aim with these things. They should have the best bullet spread. Their recoil is surprisingly low, all things considered, but their lack of range really hurts them. Especially if you're playing on something like Pirate Cove and the spawns are jacked and someone's on your side of the map and all you have are the sheriffs and you can't hit anyone with the sheriffs because of your lack of range and everything. Either that or you just do less damage, but even then. The sheriffs are fun, but they're not great, if you know what I'm saying. Now, A-class. We will be talking about the TAC SMG, the Assault Gun, the Dragon's Breath is another one, am I missing anything else? Yeah, the RPD, yeah, okay. So let's go over the A-class. Now, I'm gonna move this down. The Dragon's Breath shotgun, it hits pretty hard. I might actually put this in S-class later, depending on how I'm feeling, but it actually hits pretty hard. First off, it's like the trench gun, where like, if you hit someone at very close range with it, they die on the spot, right? But this thing has another added perk. That perk being that once you hit someone with this thing, 30 damage instantly, because you set them on fire. Whenever you get someone on fire in this game, you take 30 burn damage. But other than that, this gun doesn't really have that much going for it. Again, it's a shotgun, so it suffers shotgun-related issues, like lack of range. So that kind of hurts this weapon. And I moved the assault gun down because it kind of suffers the same fate as the Dragon's Breath. But this thing is so much fun to run and gun with. And the reason why I put it above the Dragon's Breath is because if you run lightweight with this thing becomes an amazing hit and runner. Like, it's a great rushdown weapon. If you run lightweight extended clip, you can just keep the pain going. It can be kind of hard to do because of its lack of damage, but at the same time, if you're forcing close quarters, you can actually destroy a lot of people with this weapon. So it's a great weapon in that regard. Moving on to the RPD. The RPD is it's another okay weapon. It's not the greatest. That much I can't say. It's not the greatest, but it's actually one of the better. And when I say not the greatest, I mean not the greatest for like lobbies like Team Deathmatch, Free For All, those game modes, those lobbies. But in like something like Infected, this thing just shreds people apart. You have 3-shot people, you got a lot of ammo to play with, ungodly amount of range. Of course, this thing does kick a little bit more than the M60, but it has good ammo and a lot of damage to compensate for that. So as long as you're hitting people, then you're pretty much good. And then of course we got the TAC SMG, which I'd say is probably the most mid of the SMGs next to the A180. The A180 could be an A class. You could argue that's pretty much why I put this damn thing at the top of B, because you could argue that it's an A class. And then, you know, you could put the Dragon's Breath, you could argue that the Dragon's Breath belongs in S class. I'm going to put that at the top of it as well. But anyways, the TAC SMG has to be probably the most mid of the SMGs. But in saying that, it's not that bad. It's got good ammo, decent recoil at 60, good range, good fire rate. Bullet spread's pretty much on point, so it's a very good weapon, but again, I call it the most mid because there's literally every other SMG does what it does, but better. Now, moving on to the S class. This is going to be a big one. Let's start with the AWP, and then we're going to put on the Army Rifle. This thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, pretty much almost every single weapon here. And this is not, none of this is in order. None of this is in order. There's a lot of strong picks here. A lot of strong picks. Now, you got the AWP one-shotting everyone, even without hollow points. If you put hollow points on this thing, you're pretty much a madman. If you put hollow points on this AWP, it's Black Air Force's weapon number 2, okay? Black Air Force's weapon number 2. I don't know how you snipers make it so easy to use this weapon. You make it look easy, dude. Y'all are some soulless mofos, I'm sorry. But anyways, this thing, its only weakness, keeping it out of SS, is its slow fire rate. Even if you put extended clip on it, the fire rate is super slow. But other than that, this thing can actually really bring the pain. But it does suck at close range. Army Rifle's pretty much a laser beam. The only thing is that because it's an assault rifle and because you're probably going to run around with this, the scope kind of gets in the way. But regardless, this thing's got pretty good bullet spread, all things considered. Its recoil is almost non-existent, which is why I say this thing pretty much shoots lasers. Its only weakness is the lack of ammo, but other than that, it's a very good all-rounder. Battle Rifle recently got buffed, so that's something that's always nice. It's got good range, fast fire rate. It's pretty much an SMG trying to be an assault rifle, so it's pretty fun. So think of it being an SMG with a lot of range to it, essentially. And then we got the Heavy Rifle, which it's slow as hell, but it hits very hard. Its iron sights are pretty bad. The barrel flash gets in the way of the iron sights, but if you put like a silencer or a muzzle brake, or muzzle flash, whatever you say, and like a dot or something, you can actually turn this thing from being annoying into being one of the most dangerous weapons on the field. So that's something else you gotta look out for. Another good weapon is the assault rifle, which is the FAMAS, which is a very good 3-burst weapon. You can actually 1-burst people with it, much like the A180, but this thing's more stable. Very strong contender indeed. You're looking at 90 meters of range, low recoil, bullet spread is whatever, but again, this thing can 1-burst people if you are accurate enough, so keep that in mind. Next up, the Elite Rifle. This thing used to be Black Air Force weapon, or a Black Air Force weapon, but it's been sort of tuned down, especially since people on PC just got away with so much using this weapon. It's got very good bullet spread for an assault rifle, especially a semi-auto assault rifle. I don't know why. Volcron's friggin' bullet spread for the Elite Rifle is a lie, but other than that, it does good damage, has lots of range, good ammo pool, and if your trigger finger is itchy, you can get off a lot of bullets in a short amount of time. Next up is the M1 Garand. Now, Forever, if you're watching this, I need to ask you some things, man. I really do. What on earth gave you the idea to, 1, not include the damn ping sound for this weapon. And look, that doesn't really irk me that much, but what really did was that 2, you made this a full auto weapon, and 3, you gave this way more ammo than it needed. Okay? And it's stable as hell. But in saying that, that's exactly why this weapon's so good. It does good damage, it's got lots of range, and it's stable. Its bullet spread is kind of bad, but you wouldn't really be hip-firing with this thing, would you? No, you'd be aiming down sight, right? You'd be killing people from a distance with this thing, so it's a good weapon in that regard. Marksman Rifle, one of the 3 starters that you get alongside the Battle Rifle and the Special Forces Rifle. The Marksman Rifle is, it used to be rival to the AWP, but honestly, unless you're getting nothing but headshots with this thing does suffer, so it pretty much fits lower on the S-class list compared to the AWP. But the Marksman Rifle, if you're getting headshots with it constantly, if you're that accurate, then it can actually do wonders for you. Other than that, it's pretty much your standard run-of-the-mill sniper rifle. You know, this might actually go into A-class now that I think about it. It's pretty... It would have been S-class, but honestly, because of the nerfs it received, it's nothing compared to the AWP, really. Unless you're getting headshots, but that's why I mentioned the AWP doesn't need headshots. Alright, now that we got that fixed, moving on to the MP40. Now, MP40 is a very strong weapon, very strong indeed. The only weakness it has is its garbage-ass reload time. Like, I think it's the slowest out of the SMGs in terms of reload speed, but it hits pretty hard. It has a good fire rate, very stable, good bullet spread, so it's got those things going for it despite its slow reload time. The MP5K, it's very strong, very dangerous at close range. Unfortunately, its range is garbage, but that's before I mentioned that its bullet spread is okay. It hits hard, gets all those bullets off in a second, and yeah, there ain't much to it other than it's one of the better weapons you could use if you don't really have much else to use, right? Moving on to the MP7, this is another great weapon, good for hit and runs, good for rushing down. It's pretty much a weaker TMP. I'm actually gonna move the TMP up here. In saying that it is a weaker TMP, it does have some things going for it. Like, for one thing, it fires faster. And 30 meters of range isn't too bad, considering some of the other SMGs lack range, so it's not that bad. And because it does 26 damage, really, 8.3 seconds of fire rate is actually very strong. So, and of course, you know, TMP, hipfire, one of the hipfire gods, really. Not as godly as the Sheriffs or the Tech 9, but very strong. Very, very, very strong. Now, of course, you do have recoil issues, but a lot of the SMGs have recoil issues. So, if you want a strong rushdown weapon, like, pretty much any of these SMGs will do, even the ones down here, but yeah. I'm sorry if I don't sound like I know what I'm talking about. There's just a lot of weapons to cover, and I don't want to spend too much time, you know what I mean? Next up, Special Forces Rifle. This one is another one that surprised me. For those who remember my in-depth, you'd hear me talking about how the Special Forces Rifle is a pretty good all-rounder. And it is a good all-rounder. It does good damage, it's got good range. The bullet spread's okay. The recoil is okay. The fire rate is pretty good. So, what more could you ask for a decent assault rifle, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those weapons where if you prestige, you just know it'll carry you until you get your hands on something better. You know what I mean? Next up, the Vector. I'm actually going to put this above the not the Marksman, damn it, the AWP. Now, there's a lot of people that love using this weapon, and that's for good reason. It's one of the more consistent weapons in this entire game. It's got good damage, good hip fire, good ammo pool. I think it might be worthy of the SS tier, actually. It might be our first SS weapon. It's just got a lot going for it, you know? It's relatively stable. I don't know why it's relatively stable. Like, seriously, 50 recoil is insane, especially when the fire rate is literally 10 bullets a second. That's nuts. And its bullet spread is awesome, too. A very awesome bullet spread. And then finally, we got the Bison, which also would have been in the double S tier, but its range is just garbage. 50 meters of range, but honestly, despite the range, like, if you could get around the range part, this thing just deletes people at close range, so it's a very good weapon, but again, it's held back by its lack of range. Now, moving on to our 4 other Black Air Force weapons. We got the AR-60, the P-90, the Tech Rifle, and the Combat Rifle. Now, I already explained the Vector. Yeah, I moved this in the SS tier. I already explained this, so we can skip this. But the AR-60, I don't know why I forever thought it'd be a good idea to make the AR-60 the way it is. It's one of the first weapons you get in the entire game, and it's got a good fire rate. It does good damage. It has 80 meters of range. It's one of the more stable weapons, and not to mention you aim fast as shit with it. And also, not to mention, the bullet spread is freaking low too. Like it's actually a lot of the sweats love using the AR-60 just because it's one of the more stable weapons in the game. So because it's so stable, that's exactly why it's top tier. And now we also got the P90, which got nerfed like 50 times, but of course. You know, all it's been is damage nerfs, and I keep telling Volcron, if it doesn't matter how much damage you nerf, if the fire rate is insane, it doesn't matter how much damage it does. Well, except if it does like 1 damage, then it just becomes unusable. But even then, 11.1 bullets per second, 20 damage, 40 meters of range, bullet spread on point. Like, what more could you ask for in the P90? It's pretty much the best SMG in the game next to the Vector. One of the best guns in the game, period, you know what I mean? And then we got the combat rifle. Not just the combat rifle, but the combat rifle that got buffed a couple updates back. This thing just screams Black Air Force energy. You force shot people from pretty much any distance imaginable. Well, not any distance imaginable, but you force shot people from a number of distances. And not to mention, the bullet spread on this thing, I don't know why, but the bullet spread on this thing is actually very good. Not only is the bullet spread good, its recoil is pretty good, and its fire rate is also really strong too. And I say it's very strong because 28 bullets per second, not 28 damaging bullets. No. 28 damage with 7 bullets per second is very strong. And then finally, we got the Tech Rifle. Now the Tech Rifle is just, dude, it's. Where do I even begin with this weapon? This thing, I've used this thing quite a lot recently. The recoil is insanely low. You got one of the best looking optics in the game. You got a massive ammo pool. The damage is whatever, but at the same time, the fire rate's so high, it doesn't matter. It's got awesome bullet spread, fire rate on point, range on point. It's one of the better weapons in the entire game. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much the entire tier list. Not one of these weapons is garbage tier. I mean, we got the 3 low tier weapons, but of course, every single one of these, like, most of the game is well rounded, other than the top 5 primary weapons here. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this tier list. I'm sorry if my brain turned off those times, but yeah, it's kind of hard doing this on the fly, especially when you only had a few hours to play with every single gun, right? I bet you if I played for much longer with each and every single one of these weapons, I would actually sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I can only go off of what I've experienced within a short few hours of using these weapons, right? Well, anyways, guys, that'll be it for these tier lists. I'll leave links to the description so you can make your own tier lists. And other than that, yeah, guys, that'll be it. If you enjoyed, be sure to drop a like, tell a friend or tell another friend, subscribe for more. There's going to be more Smash Bros. And wrestling videos coming out soon, so hope you guys tune in for those. But other than that, hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks you so much for watching. It's Rusher. I'm out of here. Peace.